I mean, it's probably surprising to hear, but I have wanted to know for a long time what it would look like if you had a player like Curry in terms of movement off the ball and gravity and the way he extends and bends defenses. And at this point in time, frankly, it feels like the league, I imagine each team before they play the Warriors has a little special Curry book of rules that how, don't ever leave them open. Don't ever switch off them. If you're in transition, you won't get benched if you give up an open layup, all these things. And so the experiment that I'm loving right now is for the last couple months, Curry's shooting, his actual ability to convert on his own opportunities when he shoots, has gone down. But how much has that impacted his value with the league still playing him the exact same way? That's what I'm excited about.
To put some numbers on this, that I found it laughable at the time, but when Curry was approaching breaking the all-time three-point record, it was like right before the Portland game, and Curry was like floating out like, oh, what if he breaks it tonight? What if Curry hits 14 threes? It's like, all right, this is clearly not going to turn out well. We know how all these movies turn out when you say something like that. But since that game, it's been like a 19-game sample. Curry's shooting 34% on threes, 34% on threes, and his overall shooting, his true shooting percentage, his relative true shooting percentage has dipped below league average. He's shooting like 0.3 percentage points worse than league average for these 19 games. And so based on this sort of in-season experiment that we've got going on, what do you think the case is? How is this affecting defenses? How is this affecting their offense?
Well, this is what's so fascinating. I actually pulled the numbers a couple games before because his overall true shooting is even worse. If you go back to December 2nd, what is that? A quarter of the season with normal-ish Curry shooting, it was at 63% before this through the beginning of December. And then after December 2nd, he's at 55% true shooting. League average true shooting right now, Cody, is almost 56%. And Steph Curry is at 55%. So what that means is his scoring goes from 29 points per 75 down to 26 points per 75, and he goes from like +7 relative to the league down to league average or right below league average. This is what's crazy. Now, we know plus-minus stats are noisy. I am not looking at this and saying his value didn't change at all. I don't think that's true. But what I do think is that so much of his value comes from warping the defense and making life easier for his teammates in a way that we've literally never seen on a basketball court, probably at any level. I mean, when he was at Davidson, there's an incredible video by our friend Jordan Sperber on YouTube, Hoops Vision 68 channel, about a game at Davidson where the opposing coach double-teamed him the entire game, regardless of whether he had the ball or not. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. And I think that sort of embodies so much of Curry's value. And here's the reveal. Before all this happened, Golden State had a 117 offensive rating with him on the court, and they were plus 18 per 100 possessions. And then when he went off the court, they had a 106 offensive rating, and they were plus 2. So that change, that net difference with him on the court versus off the court, was about plus 16. That's before the slump. Since the slump, the Warriors, obviously, Draymond Green has missed time. There's been other stuff that's taken place. Since the slump, they are plus 10 with Curry on the court with a 114 offensive rating. So the offensive rating's gone from 117 down to 114. And then they are minus 6 with him on the bench with a 102 offensive rating. So, Cody, the net change is still plus 16. It's the exact same kind of statistical impact. And the offense, which was 11 points better with Curry in the first half of the first quarter of the season, is now 11 and a half points better with him in the second half of the season. Again, there's some noise there, but to me, this reflects just how much, as long as defenses are going to play him like this, the other stuff is the thing driving so much of his value versus making a few extra shots every 100 possessions.
Yeah, I'm glad you shouted out to that early college game. I think it was back in 2008. It was a matchup with Loyola, I think, and Davidson still won by 30 points, holding Curry to like 3 shots and 0 points, like you said, with double teaming him in the corner the entire time. And that was the harbinger of what was to come for Steph Curry. And these numbers that you're throwing out there, it's one of those when you like think about it and you're like, yeah, of course, Steph Curry's movement and the way he himself can move the ball and he moves his body, of course that wouldn't affect their offense. But when you actually think about the fact that his efficiency has dropped, even though I must say, it's not like this was his most efficient scoring season ever anyway.
Right.
But when you see that drop in efficiency, it's mind-boggling to be like, from this sample, it did not matter in terms of net swing with him being on the court. Yes, the offensive rating dropped down a couple of points, so maybe you could make the argument that that net rating swing would have been even better had he been shooting closer to what we know Steph Curry to be. But still, that shift is just, it shows you, when a player goes into a slump, other teams aren't going to be like, all right, this is great. Now we're going to leave Steph Curry wide open on a couple of these plays. We can help off in the paint. No, he's still Steph Curry. They still got to chase him around. They still got to Matthew Dellavedova him and touch him every second that he's running around the court.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it perfectly. And in fact, a couple years ago, for a Nylon Calculus article I wrote when I was talking about the interaction between scoring and playmaking, and how if you pass too much, you can't really expect to break down the defense constantly. And if you score too much, you're not taking advantage of the defense reacting to your scoring. And it turned out that when you look at like a regression analysis, when you try to look at a large sample and say, on average, what happens if you're 4% lower in true shooting or something? What happens if you're Russell Westbrook and you have this incredible rim pressure and you're a dynamo and you get a lot of assists and you score a lot, but you take a bunch of extra shots and your efficiency is like, 3 percentage points worse than the league instead of being 3 percentage points better than the league? And it turns out it seems to make almost no difference. In other words, defenses can't perceive or don't care about a few extra makes or misses here and there up to a point when it comes to reacting to your scoring pressure. They almost have to decide, like you see in the playoffs or like you see sticking with Westbrook at this point in his career with Los Angeles this year, they almost have to preemptively decide, we don't need to worry about that guy in the corner, or we don't need to rush doubles and we don't need to flood the paint. And once they preemptively decide that, again, that is the bigger driver versus a couple percentage points in scoring. Now, I think if defenses start playing Curry differently and he never makes shots again, that's a very different conversation. And to your point, the offense went down a little bit. Maybe they could have been better anyway. I do think he loses value by missing some of these open shots that he normally makes. But it's an incredible reminder, I think, that even a stat like gravity, I've heard people say gravity is a defensive stat because it's about the choice defenses are making, and often these are premeditated choices, and no one is going, Curry's in a slump, maybe we shouldn't guard him anymore.
Thanks for listening. You can find the full episode of this Thinking Basketball podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts.